On this Tuesday night from Edmonton, the UCP's victory. Premier Danielle Smith's promise.
I cannot, under any circumstances, allow these contemplated federal policies to be inflicted upon Albertans.
Her loss of key seats to the NDP.
Now is not the time to let up. Now is the time to step up.
I'll speak one-on-one with Premier Smith. What can you say to reassure those moderate Conservatives? On alert, the raging wildfires rattling Nova Scotia's nerves. And fresh claims how Beijing allegedly targeted the former federal Conservative leader.
Global National with Dawna Friesen, reporting tonight from Edmonton.
Good evening from Alberta's capital. It was Danielle Smith's first test in a provincial election since becoming leader of the United Conservative Party, and she passed. Smith will stay on as premier. New Democrats won 38. There will be recounts in 2 Calgary ridings where the margins were razor thin. Here are the numbers. The UCP won 49 of 87 seats. The New Democrats won 38. There will be recounts in 2 Calgary ridings where the margins were razor thin. And where both parties won reveals how politically polarized Alberta remains. The NDP swept all the seats in Edmonton, winning every riding there. Rural Alberta is the opposite, almost all blue. In Calgary, the NDP flipped several seats, booting out some UCP cabinet ministers and winning more seats overall than they did in the last election.
I'm very pleased that we will be welcoming at least 10 more MLAs to our caucus. Who will form part of the largest official opposition this province has ever seen in its history.
Danielle Smith did win a majority, but it's a slim majority, and its base is rural. That will affect who she picks for her cabinet and possibly how she governs. Heather Yourex-West is with me here. Heather.
Yes, several former cabinet ministers were defeated last night in tightly contested races across the big cities, including the former Deputy Premier Casey Madhu and former Health and Justice Ministers Jason Copping and Tyler Shandro, though Shandro's race is being subject to a recount. 3 other former ministers from the Calgary area also failed to hold on to their seats. Most of the new UCP caucus does come from areas outside the big city, creating a government and province divided across urban-rural lines.
For the people of Wetaskiwin, a little city south of Edmonton, the morning after Alberta's election is a beautiful sunny day.
It's good for Alberta. We're stable as being a local business owner. I think now we got a good direction to keep Alberta going on the path to move forward.
You're a Conservative supporter?
Yes, I am.
And what about that party resonates with you?
I think their fiscal spending I think they can keep it under control.
Across rural Alberta, the UCP has found overwhelming support, picking up 37 of a possible 41 seats, enough to propel Danielle Smith's team to another mandate, even after losing every seat in Edmonton and about half the seats in Calgary.
I was hoping the other party would have won. I didn't want to really Danielle Smith in it. Just for trust reasons, she switches back and forth so often.
So it really is the tale of 2 Albertas, and somebody has got to reconcile with that.
A task that falls to not only Alberta's new premier, but the province's new opposition leader as well.
Now is the time for us to do the work that has been asked of us. It is my honor to serve as your leader, and it is my privilege to continue to serve as leader of the official opposition.
The Alberta NDP leader failed to form government, but Rachel Notley says she has no plans to step down as leader anytime soon. Her caucus elected more than a dozen new members, including Jody Calahoo Stonehouse, the first First Nations woman to be elected to the Alberta legislature, and Rhiannon Hoyle, the first Black woman to become an Alberta MLA. The new faces representing Alberta after one of the most divisive election races this province has ever seen.
Now, Edmonton's mayor is among those who are concerned that this city of 1 million people has no representation at the Alberta legislation. Interestingly, this has happened before, back in the 90s under then Premier Ralph Klein. At the time, the mayor brokered a deal to have one of the Liberal MLAs cross the floor in exchange for a cabinet post, but it is unlikely we'll see that kind of deal happen in this case.
Okay, Heather Yourex-West, thank you. With me from Calgary is Mercedes Stephenson. Mercedes, Danielle Smith faces a strong opposition in the NDP. Lots of people who didn't vote for her. Could that be a moderating influence on her?
Well, Dawna, it may be less the NDP that's the moderating force on her and more perhaps her own caucus. She's going to be pulled in two directions. On the one hand, she has the promises and the alliance that she's made with some of these Alberta First people who are much further to the right. We're talking about, for example, the Coutts blockade in favorable terms, anti-vaxxers, those who opposed the mandate. And on the other hand, she has the moderate Conservatives who voted really more for the UCP than for her. And the biggest danger historically to Conservatives at both the federal and provincial level in recent years has actually been from within their own caucus. So she has to find a way to keep both sides happy, feel both sides that she is listening to them. And while she'll have to reach out and have an olive branch to the NDP, she is safe in terms of a government for 4 years. Whether she's safe for leader as 4 years will depend in part on that caucus management.
And she's been congratulated by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who endorsed her. What's the relationship with the federal Conservatives going to look like?
Well, for the Conservatives, this is both good and bad. It's good because it tells them there's an appetite to elect Conservative governments and that the kind of populism that Pierre Poilievre exhibits is also exhibited by Danielle Smith, also someone who endorsed the convoy at the time, and that can be elected in those positions by moderate Conservatives if perhaps there is a fiscal platform that they are happy with. On the other hand, the risk to Pierre Poilievre is that Justin Trudeau will try to tie any of her more controversial statements or policies to Pierre Poilievre, and that may not play well for him in places like Ontario.
Well, Smith sounded pretty combative, Mercedes, in her speech last night about the Trudeau government. Here's a clip. What do you make of that, Mercedes?
Well, Dawna, I think that this is rhetoric.
What do you make of that, Mercedes?
Well, Dawna, I think that this is rhetoric that the Premier feels is effective. It establishes her as an Alberta first, as she likes to say, an Albertan's first Premier. But at the end of the day, she's taking a softer tone with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. When you and I spoke to her today, she does want to collaborate, it seems, but both she and Justin Trudeau can benefit from some of that political tension that comes from a relationship like this.
Okay, Mercedes Stephenson in Calgary, thank you. Now to those wildfires in Nova Scotia. Hundreds of homes and structures are damaged or destroyed. Conditions are very dry, and there's a province-wide ban on open fires, yet 6 new fires started just last night.
Do not burn. 6 illegal burns reported just last night is just mind-boggling. So no burning. For God's sake, stop burning, stop flicking your cigarette butts out your car window. Just stop it. Our resources are stretched incredibly thin right now fighting existing fires.
The good news, the Tantalon fire near Halifax has not grown, but thousands of people are still out of their homes. The wind could push the fire back to areas that have already burned. Mike Armstrong is in the area tonight.
Crews were out at first light, ready for another day of battle. As they prepared, this was the sun rising through the smoke of a fire that's forced thousands out of their homes.
I didn't think it would ever go through like it has.
The Smiths left their home Sunday afternoon. They're staying with their daughter. This morning they were waiting at the roadblock to their community, desperate to get back to check on their cat. They left too quickly to grab it. The flames arrived too suddenly.
They just shot right from the ground and started shooting right up into the trees. It was unbelievable.
1 second there was no fire, the next second.
Yep. The heavy smoke came in, and then seconds behind it, the fire was there.
Now, few have seen their homes or even had news since escaping Sunday. When this was the last thing you saw, it's hard to have confidence about what you'll go back to.
It's bad. Praying everybody's okay and the house is still there. We don't know.
At the northern roadblock, a couple that had just found out their house is still standing. The painful part of what they're living through, the Grants say, was the uncertainty.
Just not knowing if your house is still there or not. That's the worst part. But now we know, so we feel way better. Way better.
This map.
The city is giving people a better idea of what's happened on the ground. An updated map shows an orange section, what it calls an area of significant impact. Now, one challenge for firefighters right now is hotspots, smaller fires still burning that could spread. There is also the issue of what's called reburn.
When the fire goes through a specific area, it cures those fuels. So those fuels that haven't been consumed the first time that fire goes over now are ready to burn.
Now, as fires force animals out of the woods, there are new rules to prevent more. The situation is so dry, the province is banning not just outdoor fires, but hiking, camping, fishing, all activity in forests. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Halifax.
Meteorologist Anthony Farnell is watching the conditions. Anthony, why did these fires take off so fast, and what's in the forecast?
Well, Dawna, this all started on Sunday when it was a combination of gusty winds, record heat, and record low humidity. But it actually goes back. In fact, since early February, this entire region has seen less snow and less rain than normal. In places like Halifax, it's about 50% of average over the course of that period. And lately, we've had a lot more of these big high-pressure systems that have meant subsidence, sinking air, warming temperatures, another surge of warmth on the way. Over the next couple of days, highs could top 30 degrees. Relative humidity in the 20 to 30% range, which when combined with wind and sunshine really dries out the vegetation and can lead to extreme forest fire risk. But there is relief on the way. 21 degrees Friday with showers, and then a much cooler and at times wet pattern lingering into early next week. Dawna?
Okay, Global News meteorologist Anthony Farnell, thanks. In New Brunswick, people who had to leave their homes because of a fire near St. Andrews are allowed to go home. That blaze is still considered out of control, though. Crews have made some progress containing it and protecting homes. More than 50 firefighters are attacking it on the ground, and at least one home has been destroyed. Officials say that fire was started by an ATV. The entire province also remains under a burn ban. Former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole has outlined what he calls a sophisticated campaign by the Chinese government to target him and undermine Canadian democracy. Canada's spy agency briefed O'Toole about Beijing's efforts to tarnish his reputation and spread misinformation during the last election. O'Toole says it underscores the need for a public inquiry. Turia Isri reports.
Erin O'Toole is outlining how the Chinese Communist Party allegedly targeted him and how, in his view, the Canadian government failed to stop it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a point of privilege. And I'd like
the former Conservative leader spoke in the House and offered a rare level of detail about Beijing's tactics.
The briefing from CSIS confirmed to me what I had suspected for quite some time, that my parliamentary caucus and myself were the target of a sophisticated misinformation and voter suppression campaign.
Canada's spy agency informed the Ontario MP on Friday he's been singled out because of his hard line on China. O'Toole would not go into specifics, but says the Chinese government paid and directed groups operating in Canada to spread misinformation in an effort to discredit and undermine him.
It was incredibly frustrating.
O'Toole's former campaign manager says the party raised its concerns, but they went nowhere.
The security establishment was telling us that there's gaps in the legislation. So what are those gaps, and how do we plug this to make sure this stuff does not happen again?
CSIS has briefed at least 3 MPs the Chinese government has allegedly targeted. The former Governor General ruled out holding a public inquiry, but is recommending opposition leaders be granted top-secret clearance to review the intelligence that led to his conclusion.
We don't need more people to keep secrets. We need more people telling the truth.
He is choosing to not get briefed up on the actual facts of the matter.
O'Toole is one of the many calling for a public inquiry, calling Johnston's recommendation offensive. O'Toole is resigning from his seat this summer. CSIS has warned him he will remain a target of the Chinese government long after leaving politics. Turia Isri, Global News, Ottawa.
You are looking at the downtown Calgary skyline. We're back in a moment. Russia launched another aerial assault on Ukraine early this morning, the third in 24 hours. In Kyiv, a high-rise building was damaged. At least one person died. 4 others were injured. Ukraine says its air defense system destroyed more than 20 drones from Russia. Kyiv has faced a barrage of drone attacks this month. There were drone strikes in Moscow, too. They caused little damage, but people were forced to flee their homes in at least 3 residential towers. It's believed to be the first time civilians were targeted since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Russian president calls it a terrorist act. Ukraine says it had nothing directly to do with it. Uniting Alberta ahead. I speak with Premier Danielle Smith. Welcome back to Alberta. With me from Calgary is Premier Danielle Smith. Premier Smith, congratulations.
Thanks, Dawna.
You know, you said in your speech last night your oath is to serve all Albertans, no matter how they voted. You were shut out of Edmonton, though. You lost seats to the NDP in Calgary, including some of your top cabinet ministers, and you did run some pretty negative attack ads during the campaign. Is that all really behind you now?
Well, I would say that I was on the receiving end of a pretty negative advertising campaign for not just the duration of the election campaign, but for several months. We got almost 53% of the vote, and so I think people wanted to. We've made on public health care and, of course, our approach to public safety and mental health and addiction. The next big push, of course, is making sure that everybody has access to a family practitioner, and so I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to work with the front line to be able to address those needs of Albertans.
Well, the first policy point you made in your acceptance speech was that you're not going to raise taxes without a referendum. Where are you going to raise the money to improve things like healthcare and education?
One of the things that we discovered is that by reducing tax rates, you could actually increase revenue. We brought our tax rate from 12% down to 8% on our job creators, and investment flowed into our province. We now have more corporate income tax than we have in our history, and that's going to be our message, is Alberta's open for business. Alberta is calling. We want to continue to have jobs and investment and people coming here, because as we grow our economy, that grows our revenues, which will allow us to continue to meet those priorities of Albertans. And I'm looking forward to that continuing, and I think that's what Albertans voted for last night.
The previous UCP leader, Jason Kenney, was ousted by the party last year. How confident are you that you can keep the United Conservative Party united?
Well, look, I mean, getting a 53% mandate was pretty exciting for me. It means that the majority of Albertans love the vision that we put forward. I think we're going to put together a really diverse cabinet that's going to represent the interests of all Albertans, and I think people will judge me based on not only the 7 months I've had to govern, but also as I continue going forward. I think people are pretty excited about what we're going to be able to do over the next few years.
Have you heard from the folks at Take Back Alberta, such as David Parker, who you know takes credit for getting you into the leadership?
No, I have heard from all kinds of members. I've been on the campaign trail now for over a year, because I've been doing my leadership, and then there was a by-election, and then of course we've had the general election. And at the moment I've got a new mandate. I've got a new job, and that's the job to be Premier for all Albertans, and that's what I'm focused on doing.
But you know, Take Back Alberta takes credit for getting you into the leadership. I'm just asking if you've heard from them, if they said, "Good job, Danielle."
You know what, leadership contests are one thing, but then when you get a mandate from the people, you've got to govern for all Albertans. I mentioned that last night in my speech, and I meant it, and it's part of the reason why we're going to continue focusing on the things that I know I got a mandate for, and that was moving Alberta forward and making sure that our economy stays strong so that we can address the priorities of Albertans. That's what I'm going to be laser focused on doing.
Well, there are moderate Conservatives in Alberta who did vote NDP, who worry about who is controlling the UCP now, who fear it could be moving too far right. What can you say to reassure those moderate Conservatives?
I think what has actually happened in Alberta is that the left has consolidated around a single party, which is the NDP. So we're now really a two-party province, and that means that we're going to face a pretty fierce and unified opposition. And that's how democracy works. We're going to put our ideas forward, they're going to test them, and hopefully we'll be able to make better decisions as a result.
I know you spoke to the Prime Minister, I think, today. How did that conversation go?
Well, I thanked him for the work that he has done with us on helping to fight forest fires. We've had our worst spring forest fire season in our history, over 1 million hectares burned. I also told him that I want to reset our relationship and hope that we can move forward together with an aspiration of being carbon neutral by 2050, and work together to make sure that there are no decisions made at the federal level that will impair or impact our oil and natural gas industry. And so we'll see how that relationship unfolds, but I did let him know that I think we're all better off when Alberta is allowed to thrive, because when we do well, the rest of the country does well. And that's the spirit that I'm going into this new mandate with.
All right, Premier Danielle Smith, thank you.
Thanks, Dawna.
She is down but not out. Next, how a BC woman won one of the world's most bizarre races. You're looking at downtown Edmonton from the University of Alberta. We're back in a moment. There's a weird thing they do in the UK every year, a cheese rolling competition down an extremely steep hill. And this time, a woman from British Columbia won it, but she paid a big price. Yikes, 19-year-old Delaney Irving got medical treatment right away. She has a concussion, but said afterwards she regrets nothing.
First question, How are you?
I'm good. Now that I remember it, I'm good.
You took hell of a tumble.
Did I?
Yeah, so what do you remember of the race?
I remember running and then I hurt my head. And then I woke up in the tent.
How does it feel to be the winner?
It feels so good. It just kind of hit me, but yeah.
So the question is, are you going to come back next year?
Yeah, kind of hit her. After all that, she goes home with bragging rights and a 7-pound wheel of cheese. That is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Dawna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is ranch country near Staveley, Alberta, an hour's drive south of Calgary. Thanks for watching. Neetu Garcher will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Thursday. Bye-bye.